Buenas, me llamo Juan Carlos Cortés, estoy acá en McKinney, Texas. El año pasado estuve en San Diego cantándoles algunas de mis canciones. Desafortunadamente este año no puedo estar allá, pero quisiera mandarles a ustedes una pieza que escribí para hoy que se llama Esta es la vida o This is Life. Se la dedico a mis padres Jaime y Cecilia Cortés, a mis sobrinos Mauricio y Jackson Cortés y a mi tío Enrique Cortés. Espero que les guste.
Welcome one and all, or should I say, bienvenidos a la celebración secular del Día de los Muertos. I'm Gary Stockdale, and I want to thank Margaret Downey for inviting me to be a part of this great event, along with her co-founder, Victoria de la Torre. The Day of the Dead is actually a celebration of life, honoring many Hispanic traditions and rituals. I have my little skull that I keep here in my studio. This is the perfect event for those who have moved past their religious upbringing, but still want to celebrate the beauty of their Hispanic culture. I'm going to sing a lovely Spanish translation of John Lennon's Imagine that I originally heard by a Latin artist named David Ponce. Imagine has become an anthem for the non-theistic community, and singing it in a language other than English just amplifies its universal meaning. There are physical representations of it in two places that most represented home to John Lennon. The John Lennon Airport in Liverpool has the line, "Above us only sky," painted on the roof. And Yoko Ono's monument to her husband in the Strawberry Fields section of Central Park is a mosaic of the word imagine, where fans gather to mourn him as well as to celebrate his legacy. I was lucky enough to sing on many records for Latin artists in the early 90s, such as Chayanne, Roberto Carlos, Ana Gabriel, Juan Gabriel, and others, and it is always my joy to sing in Spanish. Thanks again for making me a part of this great celebration. Y disfruta de este gran evento.
Imagina que no hay reino, es fácil si piensas que tampoco haya infiernos, solo el cielo y nada más. Imagina la gente viviendo todo en paz, que no existan países, no es difícil de lograr. No haya más violencias ni religiones ya. Imagina la gente viviendo todo en paz. Un soñador dirás que soy, pero no soy el único. Espero que te nos unas y el mundo será mejor, que no hayan posesiones, lo podemos lograr sin codicia ni hambre, solo la hermandad.
Bienvenidos a este evento tan especial para honrar y celebrar a nuestros amados muertos. La celebración del Día de Muertos tiene su origen en las antiguas tradiciones de las culturas precolombinas de Mesoamérica hace unos 3,000 años. Esas tradiciones perduraron en la cultura azteca por siglos XIV hasta el siglo XVI como una celebración de un mes de duración. Sin embargo, el colonialismo español y su influencia cristiana han transformado la larga celebración por un evento más corto de 3 días que coincide con el Día de Todos los Santos de la Iglesia Católica el 1 de noviembre. Actualmente, el Día de Muertos continúa su metamorfosis al haberse popularizado en todo el mundo y más recientemente representado en la película Coco. Hoy lo celebramos como nuestra propia interpretación secular única.
So this is a song that dates back to the early 20th century and became popular around 1940 and has been recorded throughout the years by many, many Latin American artists up until this day. The name of the song is called La Llorona.
Me quitarán de quererte, Llorona, pero de olvidarte nunca. Me quitarán de quererte, Llorona, pero de olvidarte nunca. Tápame con tu rebozo, Llorona, porque me muero de frío. Tápame con tu rebozo, Llorona, porque me muero de frío.
Thank you to those of you who joined us early to listen to our musical guests, Juan Carlos, Gary Stockdale, and Christina Jones. They provided great performances to kick off today's event. If you are just joining us, welcome to the first online and international Secular Day of the Dead. I am Sam McGuire, the National Field Director for American Atheists, and I will be serving as today's Zoom moderator. Now that I will introduce you to Jon Huertas, who will formally welcome everyone to 2020 Secular Day of the Dead. Jon currently stars as Miguel in NBC critical acclaimed series This Is Us. You may also recognize him as Detective Javier Esposito in ABC's Castle, or as Sergeant Tony Polk Espera in HBO's Generation Kill. We're pleased to have him kick off the event with his wonderful opening words.
And thanks, Samantha. Now, I would like to personally welcome everyone to Dia de los Muertos Secular, or the Secular Day of the Dead. Now, being a non-theist and a humanist myself, this is by far my favorite day of celebration because, to me, Dia de los Muertos has always seemed like a pretty damn secular holiday. Traditionally, it's always been the way that we've ensured that our dead weren't assaulted by sadness and by our mourning. And instead, it's always existed to celebrate the living lives of the dead. And we do that with great food, drinks, parties like the one we're having right now, everything that the dead enjoyed while they were alive. So Dia de los Muertos, just like me, has always recognized that death is a natural part of life. So if we celebrate their living lives, that is also for us to recognize that we have to live our best lives right now, today, while we're alive. Not that if we are good, that we will somehow be rewarded in a heaven. Our reward is here. It's now. It's knowing that I have always tried to do the right thing without having to check in with my imaginary friend. Knowing that when I die, that I have lived a life of goodness so that hopefully someone will celebrate me on a Dia de los Muertos in the future world. The future world where, I don't know, all humans embrace tolerance. They have an openness to others, and where we actually use science and critical thinking as a means of always discovering the truth. And celebrations like the ones we're having today, they excite me because it brings like-minded people like us together so that we can stay united in our goals to actively keep promoting a strict separation between political authority and religious authority. I'm talking about a real separation of church and state. We have an election coming up, and we all know how the political weaponization of evangelical belief has tainted the process and tainted politics. So, guys, make sure you vote if you haven't already, and stay vigilant in the fight. Also, today is a reminder that we don't need a reason of why we exist. We just need a reason to live. Reasons like, I don't know, free will, equality, love, solidarity, respect of human dignity. Those are all amazing reasons for living, but they're also the essential values of secularism, non-theism, and humanism. So be kind and be good, not for some kind of afterlife, but just because it feels pretty damn good to treat people like that in this life. Now I want to introduce you to the creators of today's event, Secular Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos Secular, Victoria de la Torre, and Margaret Downey. They would also like to welcome everyone and start off the formal program for you. Thank you for including me in your celebration, and have a great time.
Jon. Hola y bienvenidos al Día de los Muertos Secular. Yo soy Victoria de la Torre, la cofundadora de este evento y una miembro de la Junta del Free Thought Society. Ahora quiero presentar la otra cofundadora, mi mentora y presidente de Free Thought Society, Margaret Downey.
So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the Free Thought Society, welcome to the 2020 International Secular Day of the Dead Zoom event. The Free Thought Society is a 501c3 educational nonprofit organization that was founded almost 30 years ago. You can find us on the web at www.ftsociety.org.
Margaret fundó la Free Thought Society en 1993 y con mucho gusto yo me uní a la junta directiva hace 3 años, un poco después del primer Día Secular de los Muertos en San Diego, California. Una de las cosas importantes que queremos hacer con la secularización de esta celebración de la vida es dar un espacio a la comunidad hispana que no son religiosos, o sea, una forma de continuar nuestras tradiciones sin la necesidad de religión.
Yes, and we seek to give all non-theists a day to honor deceased loved ones, recall the legacies of dead heroes, and appreciate our one and only life. This is why the event today will be filled with loving reflections of the life and work of many free thought secular and humanist heroes, family members, friends, and even our beloved pets.
Hoy quiero honrar la vida de Frida Kahlo, la pintora famosa cuyo trabajo ha tenido un gran impacto en el arte y la cultura mexicana. Tengo esta vela aquí. Y esta vela aquí dice: Frida, con tu arte nos has mostrado el sufrimiento, la importancia del arte y cómo podemos usar la creatividad cuando tenemos dificultades en la vida. Ahí tiene. Y con gran honor yo voy a poner esta vela.
That was a beautiful tribute, Victoria. Frida Kahlo is one of my heroes as well. Today, I will be honoring the life and legacy of Thomas Paine. He is a founding father of the United States of America, but not all of the ethical ideals that he advocated for in 1775 were included and incorporated into the Constitution. Thomas Paine was an outspoken advocate for women's rights, public schools, Social Security, and even the rights for animals, large and small. Thomas Paine was an abolitionist and fought against slavery his entire life. He is the author of Common Sense, The American Crisis, Rights of Man, The Age of Reason, and hundreds of other classical pamphlets advocating for freedom of thought and a secular democratic government. So this is my St. Thomas candle. Now on the back of the candle are these words: "Oh, St. Thomas, please bring me the strength to live my life using common sense thinking, a determination to fight against tyranny, the power to support the rights of every man and woman, and to create a new age of reason. Guide me to emulate your honest and straightforward communication skills. Create in me the power to foresee injustices that befall society and endeavor to work for the betterment of all humankind. Assist me with my work and my challenges as I study your writings. Grant me the ability to remain steadfast and determined as you were. Amen and women."
Gracias, Margaret. Todos los copatrocinadores de este evento han elegido honrar a un héroe secular.
Well, let's meet the co-sponsors and learn about who they will be honoring today.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Antes de comenzar, quiero decir que voy a usar los términos hispano y latino intercambiadamente. No voy a usar otros términos como Latinx ni ninguna otra cosa para evitar irnos por la tangente. Yo soy David Tamayo, presidente y cofundador de Hispanic American Freethinkers, libre pensadores hispanoamericanos, que usa el sobrenombre de HAFRE. HAFRE es la primera organización nacional hispana de libre pensadores sin ánimo de lucro, catalogada por el gobierno de Estados Unidos como una organización 501c3. HAFRE fue fundada hace más de 10 años para enfocarse exclusivamente en los hispanos de Estados Unidos, ya sean nacidos acá o ya sean emigrantes. Somos una organización educacional de escépticos 100% voluntarios, inculcando la ciencia, promoviendo el cuestionar todo, pero siempre usando e infundiendo el pensamiento crítico, al igual que la separación de religión y gobierno, como lo indica la Constitución de nuestro país. La formación de Humphrey se hizo porque, aunque existen otras organizaciones nacionales que llevan a cabo una labor similar, nosotros reconocemos las diferencias en culturas que existen entre la misma gente hispana y que forman parte de la fibra de esta gran nación. Humphrey existe porque entendemos las presiones de nuestras culturas latinas sobre el libre pensador hispano. Sabemos que la unidad familiar latina va desde el recién nacido hasta la abuelita a la cual adoramos y a la cual no queremos herir con la verdad de nuestro ateísmo, agnosticismo y libre pensamiento. En Humphrey entendemos bien que la religión es algo que se ha mezclado con la cultura, pero de igual manera sabemos que también existe gran cantidad de supersticiones y remedios tradicionales que son basados en mitos, magia y falta de información por deficiencia de pensamiento crítico. Y para eso tenemos a Humphrey. Nosotros los latinos vivíamos en lo que hoy es Estados Unidos en los años 1500, antes que llegaran los ingleses en 1609. Sí, cuando las 13 colonias formaron este gran país en 1776, ya los hispanos vivíamos en lo que es hoy Florida, New Mexico, Texas y California. 3 de los 4 estados con más gente en el país vinieron de México o España. Es tal, hay más gente que habla español en Estados Unidos que en cualquier otro país de Latinoamérica, excepto por México. Hoy en día somos 20% de la población de Estados Unidos. Eso quiere decir que somos más de 60 millones de latinos y aproximadamente 18% de esos 60, o sea, más de 10 millones, son hispanos sin religión alguna. Una de las tradiciones robadas por la religión es la celebración del Día de los Muertos. Y nosotros como laicos y realistas nos estamos retomando este día para convertirlo en un día secular donde se celebra la vida, no la muerte, de nuestros seres queridos. A nombre de todos los hispanos de Estados Unidos y de toda Latinoamérica, hoy yo le doy honor a Gabriel José de la Concordia García Márquez, alias Gabo, o para sus amigos le decían Gabito, el cual nació en Aracataca, Colombia, el 6 de marzo de 1927 y falleció en Ciudad de México el 27 de abril del 2014 a la edad de 87 años. Gabriel García Márquez fue un escritor, guionista, editor y periodista colombiano, el cual en 1982 recibió el Premio Nobel de Literatura. Un gran orgullo para todos nosotros. Él era ateo, aunque muchas veces decía ser agnóstico para evitar la distracción que siempre trae el decir que uno no cree en ningún Dios. Márquez abiertamente decía que era humanista y su libre pensamiento era más que obvio en muchísimos de sus libros, especialmente el libro del amor y otros demonios. Por eso hoy, en el Día Secular y Laico de los Muertos, enciendo una vela en nombre de nuestro hijo hispano, don Gabriel José de la Concordia García Márquez. De modo que si no incendio la casa, aquí prendo esta vela a su nombre y lo pongo acá para que vean una foto de él en todo su glamour, felicidad y bueno, un orgullo para todos y que tengan un feliz Día de los Muertos laicos.
Hola, I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor. I'm co-founder of the Freedom From Religion Foundation and now co-president with Dan Barker. FFRF is the largest association of freethinkers in North America and works as a watchdog to keep religion out of government. FFRF is now in the fight of our lives, working to protect the legacy not only of the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but of FFRF's principal founder, Ann Nicol Gaylor, my mother. Ann and I co-founded FFRF together as a local group back in 1976 when I was a college student. She was asked to take FFRF national in 1978. We were inspired to found FFRF because of Ann's experiences as a feminist activist in the late 1960s working to overturn laws criminalizing abortion. This opened our eyes to the fact that the only organized opposition to reproductive and women's rights is religious in nature. We saw that religion should never be part of our secular laws. My mother wanted to fight the root cause of women's oppression, which is religious control and interference of social policy. We started with the two of us, and now FFRF has 32,000 members and about 30 staff members, including a team of attorneys. We believe freedom depends on freethinkers. Please join us or ask for more information, including a sample of our newspaper, Free Thought Today, at ffrf.org. My mother was born just before the Depression on a farm. Her mother died when she was only 2. She was a second-generation freethinker. She worked her way through college, worked through her early marriage and pregnancies, and became a woman entrepreneur in the late 1950s. By the late 1960s, she had launched into activism, abortion rights, and feminism. She wrote a book called Abortion is a Blessing about the battle to legalize abortion and contraception in Wisconsin. As a volunteer, she co-founded the Women's Medical Fund, the longest-lived abortion rights charity in the United States, working for 43 years, personally overseeing help for more than 20,000 low-income women paying for safe and legal abortion care. She was handling more than 1,000 calls a year shortly before her death at 88 in 2015. When you hear the myth that atheists don't found charities, tell them about Ann. She appeared on national TV shows, made headlines across the nation for saying things like, "Religion is a crutch." The headline of a local newspaper feature about Ann was, "Ann, a woman who inspires respect and anger." A typical headline about her was, "Ann Gaylor, lightning rod." Fortunately, my mother was more interested in action than plaudits. Among her famous aphorisms, she wrote, "May reason prevail. There are no gods, no devils, no angels, no heaven or hell. There is only our natural world. Religion is but myth and superstition that hardens hearts and enslaves minds." Ann worked to free women and free minds. Many people, knowing of Ann's outspoken activism, were surprised when meeting her in person to see how petite, gentle, and soft-spoken she was. I'm grateful to my parents for encouraging critical thinking and allowing my brothers and me to decide for ourselves what we thought about religion when we were old enough. It's a testament of what a supportive, loving mother she was that my 3 brothers and I each thought we were her favorite. Over the years, so many individuals, religious and non-religious, have come up to me telling me my mother was a saint. So it gives me great pleasure now to light this candle proclaiming Ann a secular saint. Takes a minute to light this. Here's the candle. Patron saint of freethinking and freedom of choice, Saints' Day, November 25th. Dearest Saint Ann, we are inspired by your life's work. We seek to continue your legacy to free women and society from the yoke of religion. As you have wisely counseled, unless religion is kept in its place, all personal rights will be in jeopardy. And as you have sagely noted, nothing feels like prayer. The answers will not come from above. We know humans must be our own salvation, making this world, our only world, a better place. In your memory, we strive to ensure that reason and the secular United States Constitution will prevail. Amen and women.
Thank you for joining us to celebrate the lives and honor the memories of the people who've come before us, whose struggles and triumphs have shaped our community and us into what we are today. I'm Nick Fish, president of American Atheists. American Atheists was founded in 1963 by Madalyn Murray O'Hair, a woman who was ahead of her time. She was a tireless advocate and a fighter for what she believed in. She laid the groundwork for much of what we've accomplished since then, starting with her landmark fight to end forced indoctrination of young people in our public schools. But she also articulated a vision for American atheism, telling the Supreme Court that an atheist believes a hospital should be built instead of a church, a deed done instead of a prayer said, that we must strive for involvement in life rather than escape into death. Those values and those commitments still resonate today. But if there was one thing Madalyn Murray O'Hair was not, it's sentimental. And if there's one thing I believe, it's that the only way for our community to succeed is for us to celebrate and acknowledge the work of the people whose names you don't hear, whose names you don't know. American Atheists represents nearly 200 diverse community groups all across the country. These groups are made up of countless individuals with vital and compelling stories in their own right. But it's the sum of these stories, the combined narrative and life experiences woven together into a shared tapestry of our community that gives us power. These groups are made up of people who work their day jobs, take care of their families, and still find the time to dedicate countless hours to building communities that support each other when their members are facing their darkest days, to advocate for the kinds of change that build a more just and equitable community, state, nation, and world, and to be a positive force for good in a world with so much discord. So today, in celebration and recognition of their tireless work, I recognize the volunteers and the advocates, the peoples whose names we don't know, who too often face stigma and rejection from their families, discrimination and hostility in their workplaces, and threats of violence because of who they are and what they believe. Nothing is more important than recognizing the gifts we've been given by those who've come before and honoring their contributions, even when we don't know their names. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Blumner, and I'm the CEO of the Center for Inquiry. And I'm here today to honor the memory of CFI's founder, Paul Kurtz. Paul Kurtz has been called the father of secular humanism. He brought an ethical overlay to non-belief. His celebration of humanity and its astounding potential for good without the need for religion was laid out in book upon book. It said that he edited or authored 50 books during his lifetime. His love of science led him to work diligently to vanquish the supernatural nonsense that had so many people in its thrall. Paul embodied the two wonderful interlocking strands that make up CFI, which are skepticism and secularism. He died in 2012 at the age of 86, but the legacy he leaves behind is flourishing. Secular humanism and skepticism are winning the war of ideas and values, and they're giving hope and a good life to millions of people. And so today I will light Paul Kurtz's Secular Saint candle and read the tribute to him that's on the back. O St. Paul of Buffalo, New York, by example you taught us to relentlessly pursue truth with an open mind. Through your legacy we hope to become explorers, seeking what is real, even when it may be less than obvious. Though we live in a world steeped in confusion, we press on, referencing your words in all the books you've written. Guided by science and tempered by reason, we sort fact from fiction. Your life inspires us to ask difficult questions and to pursue facts. In your name, we seek evidence using skepticism as the antidote to nonsense. In Paul's name, I light this candle.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Y antes de morirme quiero echar mis versos del alma. Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, oh, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera. Mi verso es de un verde claro y de un carmín encendido. Mi verso es de un verde claro y de un carmín encendido. Mi verso es un ciervo herido que busca en el monte amparo. Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera.
Greetings, everyone. From Stockton, California, this is Abraham Steve Mackey. Special greetings to all the Free Thought Society folks. And I have some special words for our Spanish-speaking friends. Un saludo especial a todos nuestros amigos de habla hispana. Quiero tocarles una canción que aprende de niño. And what I hope I said was, I'm going to play a song for you that I learned as a boy. I also forgot it over the years, so I've had to relearn it. Here it is. It's called Rancho Grande. Allá en el Rancho Grande, allá donde vivía, había una rancherita que alegre me decía, te voy a hacer tus calzones como que usa el ranchero, te los comienzo de lana, te los acabo de cuero. Su mamá le dice a Julia, que he dicho ese señor, Ay, 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 ay. Mamá no dio nada, mamá no me dio nada, solo te hablo de amor. Ay, ay, ay. El gusto de los vaqueros es tener una muchacha para salir a la plaza y dar vuelo a la hilacha. Allá en el rancho grande, allá donde vivía, había una rancherita que alegre me decía, te voy a hacer tus calzones como que uso el ranchero de los comienzos de lana, de los acabo de cuero. Allá en el rancho grande, allá donde vivía, vi una rancherita que alegre me decía, te voy a hacer tus calzones como que uso el ranchero de los comienzos de lana, de los acabo de cuero. Well, I hope for our Spanish-speaking friends that some of that was intelligible. Thank you. Have a great time together.
Well, it is my pleasure to host the English room of the Secular Day of the Dead event. It is my pleasure to present our keynote speaker, Dan Barker, the co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. His speech is entitled, Adios, Adios.
Hello, I'm Dan Barker. I'm co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and I'm author of the books Godless, How an Evangelical Preacher Became One of America's Leading Atheists, Mere Morality, Life-Driven Purpose, and God, the Most Unpleasant Character in All Fiction. On this secular Day of the Dead, we honor those who are no longer with us. They have not passed on. They are not resting in peace. They have not gone to their reward. They are dead. I was dead once, really, and I came back to life. Well, not physically. I was baptized. After accepting Jesus as my Savior, I was dunked under the water and lifted back out again. Baptism signifies, as you were lowered beneath the surface, that you have died, just like Christ was dead and buried. When you are brought back up, you are raised from the dead to a new life, just like Jesus was resurrected from the grave. You are literally born again. And by literally, I mean not literally physically, but literally spiritually. If you believe in the spirit world, then baptism is not just a metaphorical ritual drama. It's an actual occurrence in the supernatural world. As in Adam all die, the Bible says, so in Christ shall all be made alive. Of course, that was only possible because of a bloody human sacrifice. Jesus suffered an agonizing death on the cross so that you and I could be redeemed. So I believed. Of course, it's not just the Christian religion that is obsessed with death. Long before the Gospels, many thousands of years before the ancient Israelites and the Mesopotamians before them who first started writing things down, long before that, humans had to face the reality of death. Since they could still dream about dead ancestors, many imagined a spirit world where their loved ones lived on. Prehistoric burial sites contain food, clothing, jewelry, and tools buried with the person to accompany them on their journey to the afterworld. The graves of some important individuals contain the bodies of their slaves who were killed at their death so that they could continue to serve them in the world beyond. Ritualistic burial happened all over the planet in various forms. The Aztecs, in what is now Mexico, inherited an ancient tradition going back at least 3,000 years that a dead person's soul would go up, either to the sun or to a garden paradise, or down to the underworld, governed by the goddess Mictecacihuatl. But first, they had to endure a long journey through Chicuna Mictlan, the land of the dead. This was not a hell of torment. It was the final resting place of the soul. That journey could take several years of arduous travel and difficult obstacles. Similar to the rituals in the Fertile Crescent and in Europe, Nahua rituals in the Americas, traditionally held in August, involved family members providing food, water, and tools to help their loved ones in their challenging odyssey beyond the grave. This tradition continues in the contemporary Day of the Dead festival, in which people leave offerings in the graves or on homemade altars called ofrendas in their homes. These acts are positive and optimistic. The Day of the Dead is not a mourning, but a celebration. It is not a funeral, but a kind of cheerleading. Since the Aztec rituals long preceded Christianity, the Day of the Dead is not a Mexican version of Halloween. Halloween came later in Europe, where there was generally a darker attitude toward death. Halloween is the evening of the Catholic Feast of All Saints. After the Spanish Christians invaded the Americas, the religious customs were merged, and the Day of the Dead shifted to November 1st. Today is November 1st. In 1755, November 1st literally became a Day of the Dead in Europe. That morning, the city of Lisbon, Portugal was brimming with Catholics who packed dozens of churches for the Feast of All Saints. Around 9:45 a.m., while worshipers were praying, the city was rocked by a massive earthquake, 10 times stronger than the one that destroyed San Francisco in 1906. Most of the stone churches were demolished, immediately killing thousands of believers who were trapped inside. Some tried to escape by rushing to the sea. Around 1020, the first tsunami arrived, drowning many. More earthquakes and tsunamis followed, battering the wounded city, causing great human tragedy. But that wasn't the worst. The fires that broke out grew into a roaring inferno that blazed for days through the rubble, incinerating trapped survivors, impeding rescue efforts, and destroying structures that were still standing. Convents and hospitals were ruined. So were prisons. Many of the criminals who were suddenly free began rampaging through the ruins, looting and raping. Some of them broke into homes that had survived the quakes, killing the lucky inhabitants. In the days that followed, vermin, and disease plagued the homeless and destitute survivors. This Day of the Dead incited a huge debate across Europe about the problem of suffering. Voltaire wrote his famous poem on the Lisbon disaster, savagely attacking trite religious theodicies. Is death the wages of sin, he asked, or is it the result of natural forces? Some thinkers began to question the existence of a good God. Mexico has also had its share of earthquakes, one of the largest of which hit Mexico City in 1985. That shows us that there is one thing that unites all people on the planet, all cultures throughout history. Death belongs to all of us. How we deal with it varies, but the fact of death is inescapable. Of course, as an evangelical Christian, I did not believe that. After I was baptized and called to the ministry, I preached that there is indeed a way to escape death. I spent many years as a pastor, evangelist, and missionary, including 2 years in Mexico, preaching that for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. I was a true believer. I warned that the world was going to end at any moment, like a thief in the night. I spent 19 years in ministry, waiting and hoping for the day Jesus would return to take us away from this depraved planet, away from death. There was only one time in Mexico that I remember getting any pushback to my ministry. Around 1970, I was passing out Christian literature on a sidewalk in Mexico City, when a well-dressed man came walking by. I approached him and started telling him that there are more important things in life than money, that Jesus offers true meaning and the hope of salvation. He seemed to be in a hurry, so I quoted Matthew 6:34, where Jesus said, "Take no thought for tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself." He looked at me straight in the eye and he said, "If I believed that, my company would go bankrupt." He quickly walked away, leaving me with nothing to say. But most Mexicans, especially out in the country, were more receptive. In fact, all across Latin America, Pentecostalism and evangelical Protestantism are now a growing threat to traditional Catholic beliefs. And it's all my fault. Decades later, when I returned to Mexico for the first time as a non-believer, I spoke to a group of atheists in Mexico City, and I confessed my sin of arrogance and condescension when I was a preacher. I asked them to forgive me, to absolve me of the sin of missionizing. And they did. I can now hold my head high in Mexico. I am pardoned. And no one had to die to redeem me of my wrongdoing. The Day of the Dead is not about the end of anything. It's about a journey from one state of existence to another. I also made a journey from preacher to atheist, and much of it happened in Mexico. I always felt at home in Mexico, maybe partly because one of my great-great-grandmothers was born in Chiapas, and the next 3 generations, including my mom, were born in Tucson, Arizona, in the middle of Mexican-American culture. It was in Mexico, in fact, where I first admitted to myself that I was an atheist. I had just gone through a period of about 4 or 5 years of thinking and reading, gradually moving across the theological spectrum from fundamentalist at one end through the moderate middle for a couple of years to the more liberal thinking that does not hold the Bible to be literally true. If the story of the prodigal son is a parable and not intended to be taken historically, and if the tale of Adam and Eve is a metaphor, then what else in the Bible might be symbolic rather than actually true? Perhaps Yahweh, God himself, is just a literary invention, a huge figure of speech. When I realized there is no way to know where to draw that line, God moved from concrete to abstract. I learned that there is no coherent definition of God, no agreement among believers as to the nature or moral principles of such a God, no good philosophical argument for the existence of such a creature, no good reply to the problem of suffering, no evidence for an afterlife, and no need for a God, because you can live a happy and moral life without such a belief. Combine that with the fact that Jesus stubbornly refused to return like he promised, and it looks very much like it is all myth, and that the natural world is all there is. I was lying on a cot one night in the Sunday school room of a Baptist church in a little ejido south of Mexicali, where I was spending the night in the summer of 1983. I was looking out the open window at the night sky. Those stars are gathering material and burning it up, shining brightly for a while in the darkness before they burn out and cough their atoms and energy back into the void. For the first time in my life, it dawned on me that I was completely alone in that room. There was no watchful eye judging my thoughts and actions. There were no spiritual beings competing for my soul. I realized that I, like those stars, am a part of the natural universe. I am a little low-wattage sun, ingesting material, burning it up at about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and will one day sputter out and disperse my atoms and energy back into the universe. I finally met my true self. I am an animal, and that is all. And that is good enough. At that moment, I truly became a born-again creature of which the scriptures so ignorantly speak. I completed my journey from supernatural to natural, from life after death to life before death, a life that will end. My arduous odyssey complete, I looked out that window and said, Adios, adios.
That was truly a fascinating journey story, and he had so many words of wisdom for us. You can learn more about Dan and his work through the Freedom from Religion Foundation's website at ffrf.org. Before we begin the honoring ceremony portion of the program, I want to take a few minutes to honor the life of my friend, James Randi. So I'll just show a picture of James. James Randi died on October 20th, 2020, at the age of 92. Throughout his long and productive life, he inspired many. He encouraged us to seek the truth, to always apply critical thinking skills, to break the claims of belief systems, to examine all the claims of the paranormal. Like magic, James found the words to convince us that people can be fooled if they fail to think, see, and learn. I've placed a picture of James Randi on my honoring table, and I'll light a candle to place it on the table after I convey the sentiments sent by Penn and Teller, who still mourn the death of their dearest friend, James the Amazing Randi. Penn Jillette said, "There was one thing James was never skeptical about, and that was love. He loved so much and knew he was loved. Let's keep the love going." Teller wanted me to convey his sentiments as well. Mathematician and philosopher Alfred North Whitehead said, and I quote, "The stage of romance must precede the stage of precision. Learning is launched by emotion," end quote. The skeptical community into which James Randi came was full of precise and serious scholars, excellent scientists, but not natural showmen. Randi showed us that skepticism is a blast. He wrote and performed with joyful, stinging, and defiant wit. He gave skepticism all the fun and thrills of a daredevil magic show. He showed how advocating science can be wicked fun, rebellious, full of high adventure, spy, moving, daring, do, and laughs. In short, Randi gave us romance. And those are the words from Teller. We will now begin the honoring ceremony portion of the program. We'll start with 4 guest speakers, all of whom will honor someone who greatly influenced their lives. In the next 20 minutes, we will hear from actor Jon Huertas, writer Sasha Sagan, sculptor Zenos Frudakis, John Davidson, a Hollywood legend and Broadway musical stage star, as well as author Fernando Alcántar. And I forgot to light the candle for James Randi, so here we go.
Hey guys, so I'm lighting my candle for my grandparents who stepped up when they really didn't have to and took care of me when I needed it the most. This is for my papa, who worked so hard until his fingers blistered so that he could keep a roof over our heads and food on our plates. And this is for my mama and my mama for being 2 of the strongest women who seemed to sacrifice everything to try to make sure that I had at least some of the opportunities that the other kids did with better means. I miss you all.
Hi, I'm Sasha Sagan, and on this Dia de los Muertos, I want to say a few words about my dad, Carl Sagan, who we lost in 1996. His curiosity, his kindness, his sense of wonder, and hope for a better future for our species and our planet shapes everything I think about and my approach to life. And when I read his work, it's like a little form of time travel that I feel I'm able to connect with him even many years after he's been gone, and I feel so grateful for that. And I miss him in all the ways a daughter misses a father, but also because I think his voice, his wisdom, his mind, his clarity would be so useful at this moment for everyone, not just me. So I think of him today and every day with enormous gratitude and love and a wish to know what guidance he might be able to give me and the world right now. I also think about what he taught me about the brevity of life, and the idea that because it's not forever, whatever this is that we're experiencing, because it goes away, because it's not permanent, that's what makes it so special. And it's easy to put mortality out of our minds. It's hard to think about our own or the mortality of those we love, but realizing that this is not permanent is in another way very beautiful, because it makes this experience of being alive on earth more special. If it was endless, it would be less meaningful, but we are here right now. I think of that when I feel, a lot of pain for the loss of my dad and other family members and friends, people I admired and loved who are no longer here. And I think rituals and traditions like Dia de los Muertos that allows us to remember that this is not permanent are so valuable. My father was very interested in understanding things as they are, not necessarily as we'd like them to be, and part of that is accepting the impermanence of it all. So all these themes are sort of wrapped up in what I think about today, and when I think about his legacy and his work, which has informed so much of what I do and what I write about. So I'll read a few words in that vein. No matter what the universe has in store, it cannot take away from the fact that you were born. You'll have some joy and some pain, and all the other experiences that make up what it's like to be a tiny part of a grand cosmos. No matter what happens next, you are here. And even when any record of our individual lives are lost to the ages, that won't detract from the fact that we were. We lived. We were a part of the enormity, all the great and terrible parts of being alive, the shocking, sublime beauty and heartbreak, the monotony, the interior thoughts, the shared pain and pleasure. It really happened. All of it on this little world that orbits a yellow star out in the great vastness, and that alone is cause for celebration. So as we think of our dad, let us always also remember that we are here right now, and that is beautiful, magnificent, and cause for celebration.
In this secular Day of the Dead, I'm reminded how often my brother Evangelos Frudakis told me that he really was attracted to the early Greeks when they were pagans. He did not feel very much affinity for what he called the Byzantine Greeks, the Greeks since the Byzantine times to the present, who were very church-oriented. He felt that the Greek church held them back. And he thought one of the reasons that the ancient Greeks had been a great culture was because it was pre-Christian, that it was, in terms of religion, although he wasn't religious and it was more philosophical for him. My name is Zenos Frudakis and I'm a sculptor. And I wanted to talk about my brother. He was a half-brother. He was 30 years older than I am. And he was a sculptor. He was my mentor, besides being my brother. And the mentorship is a very significant thing. I learned something from him that I didn't learn just going to college and going to art school. For him, sculpture was his religion. He didn't have a religion per se. He didn't believe in an afterlife, he told me. His afterlife was his art. His legacy would be what his students said of him, what they learned from him, just as I did. And he was taught by others who were taught by Rodin and others, and it just went back to the ancients. And it's an unbroken line. And in a way, his afterlife is not just his work, but his students like myself who will continue his voice, which I hear as I work. I hear him over my shoulder. Just some of these also speak to me over my shoulder, and like the movie says, I see dead people. But his voice is there and will be there with me for as long as I live. And you learn when you have someone who's a strong personality in your life like that. You not only learn from what to do right, what they do right, but you also learn what not to do by watching them and seeing their mistakes. And you'll make your own mistakes, of course. But I learned both because he was a strong enough, charismatic personality that lived and breathed his work and his teaching. That was anybody who met him. If he came into a room, they instantly felt energy. They knew he was there. And I'm not speaking in any kind of metaphysical way, but it was certainly there. And he did have followers. I didn't want to become a follower. He had as many people in that position. I've seen it with artists who taught. They became almost cult figures, and he had some of that. But if you could keep a distance and keep a certain level of judgment, as I tried to do, you could learn from him, learn what to take and what to leave behind. And with him, I think going back to his monuments that he's created, which also a big part of his legacy, and the main one from him, in speaking with him, he was so concerned with leaving beautiful pieces of sculpture, which were the intersection of his experience of people he met that he sculpted, ideas that he had. And he made them permanent. He took these transitory experiences that, as John Keats said, my life was written water. They were like water in his hands, and he added clay to it and formed it and shaped it into his experience of those people that he sculpted and made it permanent. And that's his legacy into the future. That's how he'll be remembered, by those shaped memories and experiences of his. The secular Day of the Dead makes me think of how my brother sculpted to perpetuate his own identity into the future, because he knew he was going to die and stay dead. He told me that. He was very clear on that. And he also perpetuated his words and his memory and his talent through his students. And I feel that whenever I work, I can hear him make suggestions over my shoulder. I can feel him in my fingertips while I'm working. And when I shape a sculpture, I'm also including, he's in that process. And as long as all of us live and pass on his lessons, he will live into the future. That's his afterlife.
Hi, I'm John Davidson from television, Broadway, and film, and you might know me from Hollywood Squares, or That's Incredible, or hosting The Tonight Show with Carson, or a lot of different specials and things for the last 50 years. For about 7.5 years, we lived in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, and studied a lot of Spanish, although lo siento, para mi español es muy limitado. But we love the traditions of Mexico. And every November 1st, Dia de los Muertos, all the altars around town were just so moving and great tradition. And I also love the movie Coco that captures the whole feeling of it. But Margaret Downey has kind of put a spotlight on this fabulous Mexican tradition in a secular way, and I love that. I want to dedicate this year, for me, to my brother Lee, who passed away last August. I had 3 brothers, and Lee was the last one, so now I'm just alone. My brother Lee was a radiologist and had a sweetheart in Scotland, lived in Scotland for the last 13 years of his life with his sweetheart Wendy, and was a great inspiration to me because he was smarter than I am. And but we loved to drink wine together. We loved to smoke cigars together and to sing. He was a member of a men's choir, and loved to sing and was so supportive of me and my career, and I have such great memories, and I miss Lee so much. I was going to show you this another picture of him here. This is Lee. This would be on the altar if I had an altar. But I want to, right now, light a candle to Lee. And enjoy the spirit of Lee, especially on this great day, to my brother Lee. I'm thinking about you, buddy. And you're very much with me all the time, but especially on this great day, Dia de los Muertos. Viva Mexico.
Hello everyone, my name is Fernando Alcántar. I am the author of To the Cross and Back. But today I'm coming to you with a personal story, and it is about someone very meaningful to me. You see, I was born in Mexicali, Mexico, which is the capital of the state of Baja California. But I was the first one in my family to be born in that city. You see, everyone on my mother's side was born in a very little tiny town near the city of Los Mochis, Sinaloa, in the town of Charay. The town now has about 3,000 people, but it had to have at least like half of that when I was a kid. See, I used to spend every summer there in all of 3rd grade and half of 6th grade. And in that little town, you experience a lot of what you would imagine in a very rural town. A lot of small houses built with, synthetic material, wood, and or clay. A lot of farms, a lot of farming, a lot of, horse races and chicken houses and lots of trees and lakes and, the place where a child's imagination could just go wild. And that's where this character comes into place. This is my maternal grandmother, my Nana Tomasa, or Masha, as some people called her. You see, my Nana, she was, in my memory, she exists as this little tiny wrinkled hunched over creature that's always been there, always looking the same, like in every picture. And in my mind it always sounds like that. You see, there was about 4 or 5 of us cousins, little rascals that we would always like to get into trouble. And my Nana, she would never condone it per se, but she would always be the one taking us on adventures. Every single time that she wanted to visit someone out into even the most remote areas, into the mountains or valleys or whatever, she would take us out, mostly for company, we thought, but we realized that was the way she had to engage with us. And Nana Tomasa would take us out into these farms to visit her friends, and she would let us, jump into lakes, into canals, into lagoons. We would climb these giant trees and swing from the branches like Tarzan. We would get to ride horses or ride cows and go out into the wilderness and just explore what childhood really was. And then at the end of the day, we would come back and she would make, that great homemade food from, made into on the fire, and make these flour tortillas, right off the comal. And I just remember that figurehead. She passed away when I was still living in Los Angeles, and I was not able to make it to the funeral because the way people were traveling, they couldn't wait for me. So I didn't get to visit her grave up until like a year or two after that. And I remember that moment I went to the old cemetery and I sat by her grave. And in that moment, I was just overwhelmed with so much feeling, so much knowledge, and this understanding of the monumental role that she had, not only in being that grandmother figure, but also being the one of the people who instilled in me that sense of adventure, that sense of, hey, there's some adventure, there's some story waiting for you out there. You want to be part of it. And she never kind of drew the line. She said, if you want to explore it, if you want to live it, go for it. She was never ashamed of the poor environment. On the contrary, she was excited to show off the greatness of the environment that she lived in. And it made me a better person. So I want to say to my Nana, you will always be meaningful to me. You will always be beautiful. You will always be amazing. And you will always be part of my life because you taught me what adventure was. And you taught me what beauty was out there. Because of that, you're always here.
I hope you enjoyed hearing from Jon Huertas, Sasha Sagan, Zenos Frudakis, John Davidson, and Fernando Alcántar as much as I enjoyed it. John Delancey had a family emergency and sends his regrets for not being able to be with us today. He sends us his best wishes. During the next segment of the honoring ceremony, we will be honoring people who made a reservation to honor their dead loved ones. But first, please enjoy a video sent to us by Michael Stephen Martin honoring his hero, Christopher Hitchens, and a video by Shelley Segal honoring her grandmother.
Hey everybody, happy Secular Day of the Dead to you all. This is Michael Stephen Martin coming to you from Orange, California, and I'm happy to be here as part of the Free Thought Society's Secular Day of the Dead annual festivities. Always a great time to be involved with anything Margaret Downey has been putting on. It's been great spending time doing events with her for Free Thought Society over these last several months. And I am here today as part of the festivities to honor up Christopher Hitchens with my lovely Christopher Hitchens candle here, which was a gift to me from Margaret, along with the t-shirt you see behind me a couple years ago during the Secular Day of the Dead. So she has let me know that these will be available soon, the labels, so you can get one of your own. Let me read to you from the back here what it says about secular Saint Christopher. He is the patron saint of journalism, oration, and social criticism, with his Saint's Day, that being his birthday, on April 13th. So, as it reads, as I travel through life, please give me the strength to question authority, seek the truth, investigate claims of the supernatural, and to honor the legacy of those who have done this in the past. Assist me in challenges that will be difficult. Guide me to speak out even when faced with threats of violence. Saint Christopher, help me find the proper words to combat the absurdities of religious dogma and to dispel the myths that surround us. Grant me this special talent as I read your books, of which there are 6, and study your methods. Create in me the same power of persuasion as you, and as it reads at the bottom, Amen and women. Everybody have a safe and happy holiday, and if I may, I would like to light up this well-worn candle, dim the lights, and wish you all a very good Secular Day.
Hi everyone, my name is Shelley Siegel. I'm a singer-songwriter originally from Melbourne, Australia, and now based in Los Angeles in the US. And I'm very glad to be with you today for the opportunity to share this special moment together where we remember the people that we've lost who are close to us. I'm very lucky to have had my grandmother, Beppy Isaacs, in my life. She passed away 4 years ago now. And I wrote this song for her. So, Nan, this one's for you. This is called Mangoes.
Clear the tables, let my tears fall in the sink. Keeping the house clean brings me back from the brink. And it's alright, I tell myself, because you always kept things nice. And it's alright, I tell myself, because it's what you would have liked. And it's alright, because I know you know how much I loved you before you had to go. Early morning, semolina on my plate. Sleep in your bed, watch the tennis, stay up late. And it's alright, I tell myself, because we made those moments last. And it's alright, I tell myself, and I remember how we laughed. And it's alright, because I know you know how much I loved you before you had to go. And I remember you taught me to eat my mangoes from the skin. Yeah, I remember you brought out the nice ones each time I come in. Yeah, I remember the juices dripping down my little kid grin. Suck the fruit right off the stone. Now I eat them on my own. And it's alright, it's something that I'll have to learn. And it's alright, I think of you when it's my turn. And it's alright, because I know you know how much I loved you before you had to go. Oh, how much I loved you before you had to go.
I wish you all comfort in the joyful memories of your loved ones. You can find my music online by looking for Shelley Siegel, or you can support me and my music at www.patreon.com/ShelleySiegel.
Shelley's music always just gives me the chills. I just love her voice. It's so soothing and beautiful. She and Dan Barker actually made a few CDs together, so you might want to look those up. The first presenter in our open mic portion of the honoring ceremony is Daryl Barker.
Hey, I'm Daryl Barker. Can you all hear me? Raise your hand.
Good.
Oh, very good. Okay. This, my costume, it's really not a costume. It's what I would have wore at my wife's funeral. It's kind of the traditional, we wear black hat, black sunglasses, black tie, but I was unable to attend her funeral for reasons I'll not take my time to explain. In 1990, I was alone, and I was a fledgling atheist of only 4 years. And I was avoiding this this restaurant about a block and a half from where I was living, and because it was kind of dilapidated and kind of maybe what some might call a dive. And one day I got up on a Saturday after work and I said, you know, they can't screw up bacon and eggs, right? So I walked on in with my Paul Kurtz book, Forbidden Fruit, and I sat down, and this wonderful lady, my waitress, she says, "What are you reading?" And I said, "I'm reading a book by Paul Kurtz. It's called Forbidden Fruit." And she says, "Oh, I read that book." And I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah." And she says, "What do you want to eat?" And I placed my order, and she came back and we talked a little bit more about that. And I had the wherewithal to tell her I was an atheist. And she leaned in and she looked left and she looked right. In the 90s, when you really were, it was not a good thing to tell your employer you're an atheist. And she leans in and she says, "I'm an atheist too." And that was the beginning of a 29-year friendship and marriage. Pardon my, I'm not have good composure on this because I'm still in heavy grief. Grief is very, very gripping. It's tough to handle. Susie was my easiest hello, and she was my hardest goodbye. We were married 29 years. She was a devout atheist, member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. She was a devoted wife, and in her latter years, at age 70, she started having depression and high blood pressure and huge debilitating migraine headaches. And on October 7th of last year, she committed suicide. Very hard thing to handle. So sorry to not hold my composure here, but it's still deep and hurtful. Some of you may have read about her obituary in the Freedom from Religion Foundation Free Thought Today. And a lot of you sent some wonderful letters of sorrow. And I'm going to share with one other thing. Oh, before I do, I wanted to share a picture of her when I met her. Vibrant, wonderful, secularist. And one other point to share with you is that when the week after I picked up her ashes, I was in my workshop and I had put my beer bottle right next to her ashes. And I went over to my other workshop bench and I heard this crash, and the beer bottle had fell to this concrete and had broken in many shards among the suds. So I walked over there and I started cleaning up all the shards. And one of the shards was in this shape here. Now, y'all know, well, most of you that know me know that I'm not a superstitious man, but I'm sharing this with you because the odds of a shard of glass in the shape of a heart that was just next to your wife's ashes, the odds are like, who could have ever thought of such a thing? And I don't believe that Susie actually did push the beer bottle off the workbench, but it was a wonderful message to me in my own mind and heart that she was still with me, and she still is. I wanted to share with you my memorial that I set for her for a year. I kept that memorial up of things that were important to her, her life. I don't know if you can see well. There's a picture of her, and there she's sleeping with her favorite cat. And there is the message she gave me to the morning that she committed suicide. Anyway, I'm going to light a candle for Suzanne Palmer Barker, the wonderful atheist of my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. You know you have many, many friends in the secular community. All you have to do is reach out and call any of us, write to any of us. We're here for you, and we have the deepest sympathy to express in our heartfelt love for you and all you stand for today. Being Dan's brother must not be easy, but we love you too, Daryl. Our next presenter is the Executive Director of the Secular Coalition for America, Debbie Allen. She will be honoring her hero, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I must admit, I'm a little shaky from hearing Daryl's words. He's right, that kind of grief is so immediate and so deep. It just, anyway, Daryl, our hearts go out to you. So, it's an honor for me to remember today Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Justice Ginsburg died at the age of 87 on Rosh Hashanah, which began at dusk on Friday, September 18th. For all of us, the sense of loss was immediate and overwhelming, almost unbelievable given the series of tragedies we've endured during the year of 2020. For women everywhere, it was the loss of a fierce advocate for their liberties, a righteous role model who had managed to overcome numerous obstacles with determination, tremendous talent, a tireless work ethic, and the love and support of her family and colleagues. As the first director of the ACLU Women's Rights Project, she persuaded the Supreme Court that women and men long treated differently under the law must be accepted as equals. With the exception of Thurgood Marshall, no Supreme Court justice did more to realize the Constitution's promise of equal protection of the law. Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have been quick to remind us that neither of those heroes of the civil rights movement acted alone. They carried the torches of the civil rights and women's rights movements respectively. Their courtroom arguments were buoyed by broader political currents. Both achieved far-reaching historic changes in constitutional law, and both did it incrementally through careful, painstaking work aimed at appealing to those not already with them. As Justice Ginsburg said, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. For our secular community, we lost a faithful guardian of our constitutional guarantees. Our hearts sank as we contemplated how the Supreme Court would change and how our progress over past decades was now in danger. It was especially heartbreaking and meaningful for the Jewish community that she died on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, literally meaning the head of the year, marks the new year of the Jewish calendar. Family gatherings are marked by historic rituals and beloved family traditions. The period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur which follows 10 days later, are both a time of rejoicing, but also a time of serious introspection, a time to celebrate the completion of the year while also taking stock of one's own life. Rosh Hashanah is also known as Yom Hadim, or the Day of Judgment, on which God opens the books of life and death, which are then sealed on Yom Kippur. Within the Jewish community, when someone dies, they often say, Zikrona Labracha, which translates to, may her memory be a blessing, or may her memory be for a blessing. When we say, may her memory be for a blessing, the blessing we speak of is not, may we remember her fondly, or may her memory be a blessing to us. The blessing implied is this, may you be like Ruth. When a person dies, it is up to those who bear her memory to keep her goodness alive. We do this by remembering her. We do this by speaking her name. We do this by carrying on her legacy. We do this by continuing to pursue justice, righteousness, and sustainability. In her own words, she guides us. To make life a little better for people less fortunate than you. That's what I think a meaningful life is. One lives, not just for oneself, but for one's community. Zikrona Labracha, and now I will light the candle. It's an honor to light a candle for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In celebration of a life well lived. And in the Jewish faith, of which I'm a Jewish atheist, by the way, once you light the candle, you let it go out naturally. You let it extinguish on its own. I do this every year to mark my relatives and other people I care about. It's wonderful to see the light dancing, but eventually it goes out again. But a day of memory is worth it all. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. That was really heartfelt and a very touching tribute to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Next, we're going to hear from Lynn Schultz.
So my oldest was Scout Schultz, and with preferred pronouns they and them. So they were 21 years old and having a mental health crisis and was shot and killed by campus police. I want to talk about Scout. The only other thing I'm going to say about Scout's death is, you know, how we deal with mental illness and policing in this country both have to change. But I'll tell you about Scout. We've got pictures of Scout behind me. Scout was an engineering student, scary smart, was going to start, had actually started with a few graduate classes because they wanted to go on to make biomedical devices. Scout was the president of the Pride group on campus, and a humanist and very much an activist in all kinds of causes. Wanted to make the world a better place, and it's definitely a lot of lost potential there. Scout also had a good sense of humor, and He loved music too. Was a big nerd, into D&D, and was a brony when that was a thing. Anyway, I'll light the candle. I gotta light some incense first so I don't burn my fingers on these short matches here. So. Okay. Oh, I guess you can't see the candle. There you go.
And thank you for putting all those beautiful pictures up behind you. And thank you so much for your tribute to your son, and really appreciated hearing from you. Please keep in touch with us. Next reserved honoring ceremony slot is for Jenny Robbins. She will be honoring her son, Cade Renfenberg.
Very close. Riefenberg. I know it's a hard one. My name is Jenny Robbins. I'm from Highlands Ranch, Colorado, a suburb of Denver. I'm also a mental health counselor, and I specialize now, since my loss 8 years ago, I specialize in grief and trauma. My oldest son is Cade. I'd like to show you a picture. He died when he was 19 in 2012. And here's a picture of him with his little brother. He was 17 and a half years older than his little brother. And here's a candle I've already lit for him during this celebration today. It's called Gray Flannel. And as you saw in his picture, he liked to wear flannel. So I love this candle. Cade accidentally drowned when he was walking home from a party, and alcohol was a factor. I'd like to read something that I wrote. It's very short. A while ago, I put it in a group that I created while I was in my counseling program in school. It was dedicated to his memory, and this is what I wrote about him. Cade was a whitewater rafting guide, fisherman, skier, skateboarder, bass guitarist, outdoorsman, and Colorado boy. Cade was happy with a heavy book or a fishing pole in his hand. Cade loved animals, prehistoric, cute, or creepy. He preferred his food and his life on the adventurous side. And he had an uncanny knack for dinosaur facts, animal classification, doing impressions, and making people laugh. And thank you for remembering my son Cade with me. It's very meaningful to me.
Well, thank you, Jenny. What a terrible loss to the world. But you provided a wonderful tribute, and our hearts are with you. Next is Hugh Taft Morales, the leader of the Philadelphia Ethical Society, and he would like to honor his father-in-law, George Morales.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everybody. Behind me is one of the two shrines that we have in our home. that my wife is particularly fond of setting up. I'll bring you over to the other one after sharing just a few words about my father-in-law, Dr. George Morales. He was affectionately known by my three children as Puba. He died in 2003. He was 76 years old, born in Nicaragua, moved to Mexico when he was 11 years old because his father was a judge who had found Anastasio Somoza, the dictator, guilty of some petty thefts, and the dictator wanted him removed and wanted the evidence removed, so his son was taken away for safety. He attended a military school, raised by a loving family members in Mexico, excelled, ended up graduating from the University of Mexico in 1945, moved to the United States where he had a residency in anesthesiology, ended up in Washington, D.C., serving as chief anesthesiologist at George Washington Hospital the day that Ronald Reagan was brought in with a bullet in his chest. The entire team of doctors were immigrants, and Dr. Morales had the duty of being on that team as the chief anesthesiologist. Just before President Reagan was put under, he perked up even though he was bleeding greatly. He was actually much closer to death than most people realize. And he asked the team there, "I assume you're all Republicans?" And they said, "Today, Mr. President, we are." That was certainly the highlight of my father-in-law's career, but I'll remember him most for being a loving grandfather who, despite two devastating strokes, demonstrated a perseverance and a determination and courage that inspired everybody who knew him. And he was a role model for my children. And for me, being lucky enough to being married into a Latino family, I thank him for introducing me through his daughter, my wife, to the beauties and wonders of Mexico, Nicaragua, and Central America. And to this opportunity to remember him in a secular format, I thank the Free Thought Society and all who are involved. And I'll go over to the second shrine. We have two, one for cousins and brothers and one for our parents. And I'll light the candle for Dr. George Morales. And that's a picture of him dancing with my wife. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Hugh. That was very interesting. George sounded like a wonderful person. Another reserve spot was requested by Mark Friedman. Mark, please share your thoughts with us.
Hello, everybody. As a devout atheist since as long as I can remember, I empathize with all of you who have lost loved ones, as we all have. I want to focus my tribute, however, to those who have died in the fight for social justice around the world, here in this country, those demonstrators fighting for social justice and against the cop killings who have been shot down by rightist thugs, by federal troops, with the direct complicity of both Democratic and Republican politicians. Personally, some of my greatest heroes who have passed in the recent years have been Nelson Mandela, Fidel Castro, and others who committed their lives for humanity, for sharing their lives with the broader popular struggles to bring justice, to end exploitation, to end apartheid. Most recently, I want to pay tribute to those internationalist doctors, volunteers from Cuba who have been battling the COVID virus in more than 24 countries, giving their lives as they did in the fight in West Africa against Ebola, where several hundred Cuban doctors went to help treat people who had absolutely no medical care. The Cubans did not lose a single person. And today we see the experience that they had in fighting Ebola transferred to Cuba, where there have been minimal deaths as compared to this country. I pay tribute to the hundreds of thousands who have died in this country from COVID unnecessarily through the incorrect actions by the politicians, the incorrect proposals by the CDC, and their refusal to cooperate with the World Health Organization and others. There have been hundreds who have died around the world in the fight for social justice, and this continues. Those who have died in Cuba by attacks financed by the CIA. Those who have died in Nicaragua, Salvador, and Mexico. Those who are killed at the border between the US and Mexico. So I pay homage to them. The church has played a horrendous role in all of this. From their support to the Batista dictatorship, which is why Catholicism is so weak in Cuba. In fact, Cuba is the most atheist country in the world. They support freedom of religion, temples, synagogues, different religions exist, but the government is totally a-religious. In fact, when there were not enough people to hold services in the Jewish community, the Cuban government paid for a rabbi, matzah, wine to come in from Canada so that the 50 Jews who wanted to continue practicing Judaism could do so. That is how a true socialist country deals with religion. Lastly, I thank Freedom of Thought, religion, for their ongoing heroic work in the separation of church and state, for the articles in your magazine on how religious schools have sucked money out of the public schools. Keep up the good work. And let us stand with all those around the world, and not only our individual loved ones, but those who die for social justice. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark. Well said. Katie Reyes will now honor her brother, Eric Weave.
My name's Katie Reyes. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. And I've really just taken it all in, hearing everybody's stories and realizing how much we share, and celebrating our loved ones today. Today, I would like to honor my brother, Eric Weave. This is Eric at his senior prom in the 90s, late 90s. Eric was 12 years older than me, so he was a bit older. But in that regard, he was always somebody that I could look up to. My mom had very high expectations of Eric to be a good example and to be somebody that my other brother and I could look up to. I'll always remember him as just being sort of kind of a legend in that regard. Eric was a firefighter with the Orange County Fire Authority for a number of years. He was married and has two wonderful children, my nephew, who's 19, and my niece, who's 10. He was also an atheist. One of my favorite stories is going to my niece's kindergarten graduation, and they, asking everybody to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And Eric and I both kind of glance over at each other like, are we really going to do this bullshit right now, And we decided not to stand up. And, he was just kind of able to take a stand like that. And it was something that we bonded over. It was, just something that was pretty cool. I'm still learning more about Eric, even in his death. Recently, his wife and children have moved out of state, and she gave me all his books. He was big into Richard Dawkins. I acquired about 10 new books by Sam Harris Dawkins, and I'm realizing how smart he was by reading the notes that he'd taken in the books. He was kind of a debater. He liked to be able to spit out facts, and it's incredible to learn more about him even as he's died. I miss him so much, and it just feels good to be able to honor him today. So again, thank you. I have my candle. I set up an altar in my home And today we're thinking about him and the other loved ones that have passed on. So thank you, Margaret, and thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Katie. And I was in California and I witnessed the police department, the firefighting equipment that was brought out and honored your brother that day. He was very loved. I knew that. Your tribute was so lovely. The next honoring ceremony reserved spot is for Jennifer Behan. She will be honoring Ed Brayton.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to all the organizers for putting together this great event today. So today I would like to honor my friend, Ed Brayton. And he was more than a friend. He was like a brother to me. And I first met him when he came to the Free Thought Association of West Michigan, which is now CFI Michigan, which I am currently the executive director of. And he came to speak on the Dover trial. And several people in our group actually were also part of the research team on that trial. And he helped promote their work through his blogs, Dispatches from the Culture Wars. And Ed told me many times that he was never a joiner, but there was something about our community and free thought, the free thought group, that he just said that you guys are different. And as soon as he spoke that first time, he just started coming all the time. And soon he was giving a lecture once a year, if not twice a year. And then he would also go travel to student groups around the state of Michigan and around the country, promoting humanism and barbecue. He not only was he a blogger, but he also wrote for Michigan Messenger, and he fought very hard for separation of church and state and to teach evolution, to protect evolution in science education. He founded the Free Thought blogs and was also worked at Foundation Beyond Belief and organized their Humanism at Work conference in 2014. So he's an example of someone who truly, truly put his values into action. And this is the other way that I remember Ed: in the kitchen, either making salsa or barbecue. Always, everything was barbecue. So he helped me run our annual retreat and make food for 100 people. We would self-cater. And oddly, I couldn't find very many pictures that me and Ed are in, because apparently we were just too busy taking care of our community together to stop and take a photo. But that's okay, because I'll never forget him, and he made such a big impact in my life. And through his blog, I've heard hundreds of stories from friends and supporters of his that they really appreciated what he did. And so I'm really happy to have this space to remember him here, because he was such a central figure in our secular family. And the way that everyone came together at the end to take care of him is a perfect example of why secular community is so important for those of us who are not religious. And his wit and his humor and his absolute refusal to take any shit from everybody, I will sit in my heart for forever. And in closing, I just want to say a line from one of his last blog articles. He wrote to say that he was entering hospice, and he said that he has chosen to end my battle to the death with death. But he wrote, "Don't be sad, be hopeful, for I got to make the decision myself, and that means the world to me. I maintained my self-determination until the end, and you all have made my life better, richer, and more fulfilled. Who could ask for more? I will miss you all, and I hope that you will miss me. Be good to each other in this incredible journey. And I just had one more picture here I wanted to share. This was when he came to, Dawkins came to Lansing, and that's him talking here with Richard. And actually, this gentleman right here, I'd also like to mention real quick, this was Carl Bajema. He is one of our longtime members at CFI also, and was a huge supporter. He taught biology at Grand Valley, and he just died about 6 days ago. And so I happen to have a 2-wick candle, so I'm going to light a candle for both of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I also knew Ed, and I thought his end of life decision was very courageous, and his words were just so beautiful. He was a great person. So thank you so much for showing us pictures and reminding us of that.
Thank you. His voice is really missed.
Yeah. We are now opening the honoring ceremony for anyone who would like to talk about their dead loved one. It's open mic. If you want to show me your hand, or you can let us know you want to share by clicking on the reactions Zoom button, or clicking on the asterisk in the chat to be recognized. But I cannot see the chat. Melissa, can you see the chat? Okay.
Yeah. So if you would like to be recognized, I see some folks popping in on top. So first I'm going to go ahead and recognize Jason. So Jason, you can just unmute yourself and start talking. You'll be featured.
First of all, that's not fair coming out of the last one. That my eyes are still wet. So let me get to, I mean, I guess you can't really follow that last act with Ed. I didn't know Ed. I had no idea that, and it reminds me that we probably should set up some sort of actual memorial place for dead atheist activists. But in my dedication for a candle, I do have a forest-scented candle for the unknown soldier of science. This is for all of those that have died alone or whatever, that remain nameless. And I don't just mean within conventional human history. I mean all the way back to the guy who knew fire was a tool and the other stupid monkeys didn't, right? This is for them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for honoring our ancestors in such a unique way. Shirtless, by the way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, so next up, I see Memo. It says Memo exclamation point, so please.
Oh, first of all, I want to thank my wife because she helped me to put all of this altar. So she's yes, she's also saying hi. So I would like to take a couple of minutes to talk about my dad. I also talk about this on the Spanish one, but my dad was a doctor, and he was one of the cheap doctors in Mexico, because really going to the doctor to him was about $10, right? That was about his fee, $10 to $15. And as such, he had a lot of patients, and he worked 24/7. It was not uncommon to see people lining up outside of our house at 7 a.m. on Sunday, because that's when he started seeing his patients, and he typically ended at about midnight on every day, right? So he taught me how to work hard. Obviously, I think he overdid it a little bit on that case, and the only day that he didn't work during the whole year was his birthday, because it was special for him. So He worked on Christmas, he worked on Independencia, on November 20, on every day that you could think on the Mexican calendar. He anyway worked except his birthday. Anyway, diabetes is a very hard disease. It takes a heavy toll on you, and not only the patient but also the family. And his past maybe 5 years showed it. The last 2 years of his life were awful. By that time, diabetes had damaged his kidney, his pancreas, his esophagus. It was just one symptom after another. And it was a long way down. But he knew that the day that he was going to die was coming. He knew it. He was a doctor. He could see it. He could almost predict it. And by the time that symptoms were worse, it was obvious that my dad was terrified of death. Not terrified. It was like this phobia to death. It was even more than what you will typically see, I guess, in a person who knows the style. But and I always found it really interesting because he was Catholic. He was Catholic, and its religion is supposed to give you this net where whenever you feel that you are gonna experience death, well, you have heaven, you have a God that is watching over you, you have this consort of saints, and again heaven, and a place to go to. And I guess that's supposed to be helpful, but I assume that a lot of people don't believe that. And I know that my dad, even though he was a strong Catholic, it didn't help him to feel less fear of death. 2 weeks before he died, he actually was very close to death. He was like about to be declared dead. We were expecting him to die that night. We actually had a lot of family on, and they were all coming just with the expectation that we were gonna see him for the last night that night, and then the next day we would be having his funeral. But he didn't die, and I told with him the next day, and he had one of these miraculous recoveries that so often happen before you get to hit the sack, right? And it's he was lucid, and he was actually feeling great and all of that. And he told me, "Hey, Gordo." He used to call me Gordo, as a lot of Latin people will know. That's a term of endearment. I want to tell you, he said, I want to tell you what happened during that night. I was still, and I knew that everything was failing, and all my senses just started shutting down. And by the time that they were seeing that I was gonna die, the only thing that I could feel, he said, was a warm light, like a warm white light. And he said that he felt the presence of his mom and his grandmom, who were, in his opinion, coming to receive him, right? And then he said, at that moment, I didn't feel fear or anger or anything like that. I was just at peace. And then he said, you know what? If that's death, if that's really death, it's okay. It's actually very, very okay. And I am so grateful that the last 2 weeks of his life, he actually didn't fear death anymore, because he had kind of experienced it. I mean, as a secular person, as a humanist, you probably have already studied what all of those near-death experiences mean, and how they are so similar and all of that, and that we don't need to put a religion on top of it. But I can tell you that to my dad, experiencing it helped him come to terms with it, not even from a religious point, right? So I want to light this little light in honor of my dad, and in honor of that, knowing that I hope that everybody experiences a death as peaceful as my dad did, and that everybody finds it that it's okay, very, very okay. All right. So this is for my dad. And by the way, thank you to the organization, to the foundation. You guys did an amazing job. It's like I was telling my wife, this is not a Zoom meeting where we just gather together and we just, hey, let's celebrate this. No, you produced an amazing show. So thank you very much. Thank you to you. Thank you to Victoria. Thank you to Margaret. Thank you to David. To obviously to Dan. You guys did an amazing job. So thank you. And have a good job. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy Dia de los
Thank you.
Muertos.
Now, one friend from the chat wasn't able to access the button, so I'm going to go ahead and recognize Conway right now.
Can
Conway,
you hear me?
Yep. Sounds great.
Fine. Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for providing this opportunity. I was unfamiliar with the traditions of Dia de los Muertos, and so have no candle. But I would like to honor 3 people. My late father, J. Saunders Redding, my mother, Esther Elizabeth James, and my ex-wife, Carol Ann Redding. And in their honor, I would like to share with you a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay titled Dirge Without Music. And it goes, I am not resigned to the shutting away of loving hearts in the hard ground. So it is, and so it will be, for so it has been time out of mind. Into the darkness they go, the wise and the lovely, crowned with lilies and with laurel we go, but I am not resigned. Lovers and thinkers, into the earth with you, be one with the dull, the indiscriminate dust. A fragment of what you felt, of what you knew, a formula, a phrase remains, but the best is lost. The answers quick and keen, the honest look, the laughter, the love, they are gone. They are gone to feed the roses. Elegant and curled as the blossom, fragrant as the blossom, I know, but I do not approve. More precious was the light in your eyes than all the roses in the world. Down, down, down into the darkness of the grave, gently they go, the beautiful, the tender, the kind, quietly they go, the intelligent, the witty, the brave. I know, but I do not approve, and I am not resigned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to share something before we wrap up here this evening? Please go ahead and request acknowledgement now.
Yes, this is the last call for anyone who would like to honor someone. So please raise your hand so we can see you if you would like to jump in at this point. We'll give it just a few minutes before we start our closing out. I don't see anyone. Melissa, do you?
Oh, yep, somebody just hopped up right now. Hi,
Okay.
Richard. Richard, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself for us, okay?
Okay, as long as
There you
I'm
are.
having one special in mind, because I wanted to see I visited Bolivia in 1994, and I wanted to go to the Day of the Dead celebrations there, but the tour didn't have that space. And I was Catholic then. I'm an atheist now. So thanks for putting this on. But I did lose my dad almost a year ago. I've lost a lot of uncles in the past few years, and a couple of friends to COVID-19, so I just want to remember them.
Well, thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, as we stated in our announcement of the Secular Day of the Dead event, we are awarding prizes to the best Secular Day of the Dead Zoom event setting, the best face painting, the best overall costume, the best hair adornment, and the best face mask. So I've written down the names of a few people to whom I would like to award prizes. And the first one, it's a toss-up. Jenny Robbins and Louise Danielson, I thought, had a beautiful Secular Day of the Dead setting, but so did Debbie Allen. She went to the trouble of putting a background up. So I want to recognize those three for the best background. Memo Benjamin, he had the best overall costume. And Benjamin Price, I'm going to just give him the Best Dancer award, because when we were playing music, he was rocking. Mm-hmm. and so did Fran Englander. Is Fran Englander still here? And then for the best hair adornment, Yvonne Vines, is she still here? I'd love to see these people once again on screen. Well, I guess some of those people have already left. The prize winners were supposed to stay in the Zoom room for a few more minutes, because I'm going to be showing the email address in this Zoom box so that they could send me their email address. And so I'm just going to have to hunt them down. Mm-hmm. And I'll be giving them some prize selections that they can choose from via email. So thank you all for attending the 2020 International Zoom Secular Day of the Dead ceremony. I hope you enjoyed the candle lighting and welcome from our co-sponsors, Annie Laurie Gaylor from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, David Tamayo from Hispanic American Freethinkers, Nick Fish from American Atheists, Robin Blumner from the Center for Inquiry, and Victoria De La Torre from the Free Thought Society. We thank Dan Barker for sharing his journey story with us today. And we also want to thank Jon Huertas, Sasha Sagan, Zenos Frudakis, John Davidson, and Fernando Alcántar for honoring the special people they have known and loved. And a big thanks to the technical assistance that Samantha McGuire and Melissa Myers gave to us, and to Bruce Johnson for rendering all of our video submissions. We also thank the Secular Day of the Dead organizing team, which included Christina Delighten, Melissa Myers, Victoria De La Torre, David Tamayo, and Samantha McGuire. We'd also like to thank our very talented entertainers, Abraham Stephen Mackey, John Davidson, Juan Carlos, Gary Stockdale, and the beautiful Christina Jones. And a very special thank you to Buck Bowen for the expert subtitles he was able to provide for the videos we featured today in our program. As we say goodbye, please enjoy a special musical presentation from John Davidson, my dear friend and favorite Hollywood Squares host, and also a traditional closing song presented by my wonderful friend, Abraham Steve Mackey. I'll now show the email address for the winners of the contest to send me their address, and also for all of you who want to contact me. I love hearing from everyone. So be safe. And if you are a citizen of the United States, please vote on Tuesday, November 3rd, as if it matters to your life. Adios, everyone. Love to all.
Via Mexico. Yo soy Juan Davidson, John Davidson from Hollywood Squares, and that's incredible. And 55 years on television, Broadway, and film. But today I'm thinking about Mexico. Pienso en México. Me encanta México. Lo siento, para mi español es muy limitado. Dios de los Muertos. Vivimos en San Miguel de Allende por más o menos 7.5 años. Se cambió mi vida. Changed my life. I don't know. Tenemos que estudiar mucho más. Bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. No, bésame mucho, que tengo miedo perderte. Tanto tiempo disfrutamos este amor, nuestras almas se acercaron tanto así que yo guardo tu sabor, pero tú llevas también sabor a mí. Si negaras mi presencia en tu vivir, nuestras almas se acercaron tanto así. Nada vida yo te di, que por fuerza tienes ya sabor a mí. Oh, no pretendo ser tu dueño, yo soy nada, yo no tengo vanidad de mi vida. De lo bueno, soy tan pobre que otra cosa puedo dar. Pasarán más de 1000 años, muchos más. Yo no sé si tenga amor en la eternidad, pero ya tal como aquí, en la boca llevarás sabor a mí. Somos novios, pues los dos sentimos mucho amor profundo, y con eso ya ganamos el más grande de este mundo. Nos amamos, nos besamos, como novios nos deseamos, y hasta veces sin motivo, sin razón, nos enojamos. Somos novios, y tenemos un cariño limpio y puro. Como todos, procuramos en momentos más oscuros mezclarnos para darnos el más dulce de los besos. Recordar de qué color son los cerezos, sin hacer más comentarios, somos novios. Si nos dejan, it's the Romeo and Juliet story. If they'd only let us, we could live in a world of love, lleno de amor. Si nos dejan. Si nos dejan, nos vamos a querer toda la vida. Si nos dejan, nos vamos a vivir en un mundo nuevo. Yo creo podemos ver un nuevo amanecer de un nuevo día. Pienso que tú y yo podemos ser felices todavía. Si nos dejan, buscamos un rincón cerca del cielo. Si nos dejan, haremos con las nubes ciencia pelo. Y ahí, juntitos los dos, cerquita del cielo, será lo que soñamos. Si nos dejan, te llevo de la mano, corazón, y ahí nos vamos. Si nos dejan, de todos los demás nos olvidamos. Si nos dejan, si nos dejan. Amor de México, boleros magnífica. Solamente una vez amé en la vida. Solamente una vez. Y nada más. Una vez nada más en mi huerto brilló la esperanza. La esperanza que alumbra el camino de mi soledad. Una vez nada más se entrega el alma con la dulce total. Renuncia soy. Cuando ese milagro me realiza el prodigio de amarse. Hay campanas de fiesta que cantan en el corazón.
Greetings. Saludos, amigos. It's me again, Abraham Steve Mackey, and I have the privilege and distinct honor of closing this wonderful event with a song. It's a traditional anthem-like song that was a gift to us from John Lennon. Of course, it's called Imagine. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. Brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Take care. Adios, amigos, and all my friends across the